welcome to this fantastic gathering of business people who are passionate about transforming their businesses. Each and every one of you who've joined us this afternoon, I promise you that this 1 hour of lunch that we are serving you will leave you so fulfilled. We bring you greetings from Springboard Capital, where we absolutely love our customers. And that is why we come together every end month to serve a delicious lunch of what fulfills our businesses and enables us to run them with greatness. We are convinced that when businesses run with greatness, this country will be great. It is already a great country, but we are going to make it greater, much greater again by the way we run our businesses. So karibuni sana to this webinar. Today we are talking about change management. We've undergone so much change. If ever there was a time and a season in our lives when change was hitting us left, right, and center, it is now. You wake up today, the borders are closed. You wake up tomorrow, it is today. Tomorrow, the change is everywhere. It's a tsunami of change. How do we reposition our businesses in this space of change? And it is said that we are living in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That has become the buzzword. It is true. It is true. Things are volatile, so volatile, even in the nation we are in right now. It's a volatile space, and so much so for the business person. It's uncertain. We don't know about tomorrow. Like right now, we don't even know about tomorrow. What's new, what's happening? COVID has really taught us that. It is complex. It's as complex as it gets, and there's so much ambiguity. Today this, tomorrow that. And so we must talk about change. Really, we must. The time is now. And it has been said that the only constant thing in life is change, and that change will happen whether we want it to happen or not happen, whether we admit it or we don't admit it, that change will indeed happen. So that is what is said. And so we need to embrace that. We need to embrace that and just accept that change is here with us. There's also a very great saying. Today I'm dropping quotes like this, so please bear with me because the quotes around change are just forthcoming. This is how we do things at Springboard. There's a quote by Charles Darwin that says, "It is not the strongest of species that survives. It is not the most intelligent of species that survives. It is the species that's most adaptable to change that survives." Is that you and me? Are you and I that species that's most adaptable to change? Will we survive? Will we survive the change that's coming at us from all different directions? That is why we are here this hour. Worry not, we have a great speaker lined up for you. How do we love our customers to have brought to your table, served fresh and hot, our speaker for the day. Our speaker for the day is Steve Gasharumbovia, but he's better known as Steve G in the circles that he operates and speaks. He's a great speaker. He's an author. He's a coach. He's a great entrepreneur himself. He has a passion for business and business people. When he wakes up, he thinks, how can I empower businesses to run better? How can I empower the entrepreneur and their enterprise to deliver on the promise that this enterprise and the entrepreneur are making? He has extensive experience in this area. I will not even start to tell you about Steve G. The whole seminar would be about me. So let me switch off right now and invite you, Steve G. Please talk to this great gathering of people. Tell us something, Steve G. Over to you.
Thank you, Carol, and good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be here with you and looking forward to having let me call it a journey. I want us to walk a journey of business owners. I want us to walk a journey of entrepreneurship. And like Carol has said, in this generation of, I like the word you used, VUCA. Things are volatile, they're uncertain, things are complex, things are ambiguous. But how does this work for us as business owners? What happens to you and I when it comes to running our business? So for the next few minutes, I want to share some thoughts on change management, on things that we can do together to readapt and reposition our businesses. And then after that, we'll have a few minutes also for question and answer if you've got some questions, and we'll be able to wrap up with that. And when I was asked to talk about this topic, the question I had in mind was, when we talk about repositioning, those are actually two different words. So there's re and then position. So I went to the dictionary and I asked myself, what does repositioning mean? What does repositioning mean for you and I? And dictionary, the Cambridge Dictionary says repositioning, which is a verb, means to place in a different position, okay? To adjust or to alter the position of. And in this case, we'll be looking at yourself and also for us and your business in this case. It talks about the way that people think about a product, service, or a company. When we talk about that, today we'll be looking at what has to change about the way you, as a business owner, thinks about your product, your service, or the company that you're running. And then lastly, reposition means to change the way people think about something, usually so that more people will like it, buy it, or support it. And I think that's the repositioning most business people are looking for, most business owners. For you, in your business today, that's what we are looking for, so that we have more people thinking and liking our businesses, our products and service, so that they can buy it, and also having a structure around us that will support it. Okay, so welcome to this journey. And who's talking? Who is this having this conversation with you today? My name is Steve Jimbudia, as Carol has said. And when it comes to repositioning, it's a journey I've been on for many years. When we began this conversation and the introductions with Springboard, people know Steve G from a business I had built, a brand I had built over years, and we were called Endeavor Connections. Like many business owners, got there with a dream to be able to influence and change the marketplace. I wanted to work with corporates in terms of capacity building for training on the space of strategic thinking and helping them just think and adopt new ways to be able to adapt to the changes in the market. Endeavor Connection was birthed with a lot of prayer. Then, like many of us, and part of the story today, the market and the customer that I was targeting happened not to respond as I thought. So over years, I think I spent about 5-6 years building the brand of Endeavor. Then through a session with a friend and a coach, they helped me rethink. Let me use the word we're using today. They helped me reposition my business and what I was doing, the value I was creating for the market, the value I was creating for my customers. I had to rethink who exactly was my customer. What is this need I was speaking to? And that conversation is what birthed the name Leverage Edge Consulting. And over the last, I think, 2-3 years, Endeavor has slowly become a quiet business name as I'm building the profile for Leverage. And this is the journey I'll share with you. What have I had to do to get there? Professionally, like Carol said, I'm a coach and I have many conversations with my clients. But the bigger thing I want to challenge us is on strategic thinking. What's the thinking behind your strategy as a business owner? I also coach people in personal life development, people who are, whether you're going through transitions at a personal level. So we also help you sit down and think through what's the bigger picture that you're working on. If you're an individual, where do you see yourself 3 years from now? Where do you see your family 3 years from now? How do you get there? What are some of the strategies you need to think through to get there? So what do we do at Leverage? And welcome to Leverage Edge Consulting. At Leverage, our mission and vision is simple, and we say that we're here to expand the landscape of possibilities. Whether we're talking to a business owner or also an individual going through the coaching session, how do we expand this landscape? And these are the 3 things that I want to discuss with you today. We'll be looking at the same 3 things that you would need to expand your landscape when it comes to managing the change that you have in your business, and especially in 2020 going forward. How do we do this? So the first thing we do is we take you on a journey of exploration. And like I said, today, as we discuss this conversation, we will do the same. And we want you to explore the bigger picture. We want you to explore the reality of where you are, and then put this in perspective on where the future is. What are your plans? What are your goals? What are your targets, both personally and professionally, over a 3 to 5 year framework? Having explored, we then walk your journey on engaging. You picked a few options in terms of strategies. We help you narrow down to 1 or 2 key strategies. And then how do you engage with them? How do you have that eureka moment where you're able to find the truth that speaks to you and your company for now? And then having done that, we take you through a journey of execution. So once you've explored, engaged, and then executing your new strategy or your new goals, then now you can say you are working on that space of repositioning your business, okay? So this is a journey I want to take you through, the 3 conversations I want to have with you over the next few minutes. So before we get there, it is said that in the African savannah, every morning there's a lion that wakes up knowing that for it to survive, it has to run faster than the slowest zebra in the area. Okay? So the lion wakes up knowing if it does not run faster than the slowest zebra, it does not have food and it will not survive the day. In the same savannah, in the same grasslands, the zebras wake up, and the thought in the zebra's mind is it has to run faster than the fastest lion for it to survive. So both animals wake up in the morning knowing they have to run for survival. One is running, chasing an opportunity in terms of food, that's the lion. And the other one wakes up running away from something that it's scared of, and that's the zebra. And this is the narrative over the last year, especially for many of us as business owners. Many of us wake up every morning and then we run for survival. Yeah. You wake up running, hopefully to survive by catching a new opportunity, a client. Some of us are running away from challenges that we've faced over the last year and that have picked up again in 2021. I'd like to pause here and ask you, as a business owner, when you wake up, what are you running towards? And then probably, what are you running away from? When I ask this is because when we talk about repositioning, when we talk about being able to adapt to the changes, the one thing I learned through my own journey and having my own mentors and coaches is the first place to start is actually to stop. Stop running, okay? But now for you, for this conversation to do, when you stop, I want you to think back onto 2020, okay? 2020 is a year that came with very many different dynamics for many of us. But thinking back over 2020, both business-wise and also personally, I'll ask us 3 questions. If you would like, feel free to put your thoughts or some of the answers to these questions on the chat. If it's something you want to have more reflective, feel free to just ponder and think through this at the back of your mind. If you've got a notebook and a journal, I would also encourage you to put some thoughts down. So question number 1 for you is, in business and also in personal life, for some of us, you might be thinking more personal dynamics rather than the business for now. What was the hardest thing you had to do in your business, or the toughest decision you had to make in 2020? Okay. When you talk to our friends, and maybe for some of us, some of the toughest things we needed to do or we had to do was that we had to shut down our businesses. It got to a place where we needed to lock down, we needed to fire some of our staff team, we needed to change the dynamics, okay? So what is the hardest thing you had to do in your business, or the toughest decision you had to make in 2020 concerning your business? Secondly, the second question I want you to just pause and think about. Yes, you went through a hard time, but what lessons did you learn about yourself, okay? Did you learn how to make decisions? Did you learn how to scale things down? Did you learn about resilience? Did you learn about friends? Did you learn about the networks that you have developed over the years? So what lessons did you learn? And then secondly, also what lessons did you learn about how you run your business? Okay, having made these tough decisions that we had to make in 2020, having adapted and looked at the lessons that we picked from that experience, the third question is, how will this lesson help you build resilience in the next few years of running a business in what we're calling a crisis environment? And I'll explain why we are calling it a crisis environment in the next few minutes. So that's the journey that we want to walk today. That's the journey that we want to have a conversation over the next about 10, 15 minutes. So when you think of 2020, that's what we are looking at. And like I said, here we are stopping the run that we are on. We are stopping to run from the effects of 2020. The 3 things I want you to look at over the next few minutes is, let's explore, engage, and then execute your business strategy going forward. So when you talk about exploring, I want you to think about 2020. Many of us, when we talk about last year, and in many conversations we've had as business owners, when I ask you what happened in 2020, the one answer that we get from many people is COVID happened, okay? The business world was closed. The government came and shut down the country. We were on lockdown. Initially, many of us thought it would be a month or 2 months. And then we realized it's going to be longer. We then would have probably 3 months. At some point, we didn't quite realize that, but we had done almost 9 months of a lockdown process. So when you talk about 2020, for many of us, this is what we say. What happened in 2020? The world closed, my business closed, okay? But I want to ask you, for real, yeah? And as Kenyans, we talk about for real, for real. So what happened exactly? What's your story? Beyond 2020 and the COVID scenario, what happened to your business, and how can you put this narrative into a story that explains where your current position is, okay? Remember, we're talking about repositioning. There's no way to reposition if you don't understand where you are now, what your position is for current situation, what's your current reality. And to do this, I want you to think about 4 different dynamics. And these are the dynamics of your business that we will look at over the next few minutes, okay? So what happened for real when it comes to the big picture? What happened in your market? What happened for your industry specifically? Because when we talk about the country, we talk about the lockdown, we talk about restriction of movement, we talk about words that we discovered like cessation of movement. But how did that affect your market specifically? I know somebody who's in the tourism sector. I have a friend who's also in the entertainment sector. She used to do planning for events. I know somebody who built their business around weddings and events like that. And when I talk to them about the country, they say that the lockdown and the cessation of movement meant that people could not gather anymore. And the lack of gatherings meant that their industry, to a large extent, was shut down. And their market dried almost to a zero. So get that specific when you look at your market. What's the big picture for you in this case? Secondly, we look at your customers and what happened to your demand. Many of us, and I'm sure as business owners, when lockdown and COVID happened, we changed our businesses to an online platform. We've had many of people move their marketing into the Facebook platforms, into Instagram, into WhatsApp status. So because our businesses stopped operating physically, what we did is we moved online to chase our potential customers. Because demand had slowed down, we thought that the right space to speak to is online and chase our customers there. But the one question many business owners didn't ask ourselves is, what exactly is going on? What's happening to my customer? Okay. Is your customer also facing the same struggles? I've heard of people who the first few months, they had to face 50, 60% cuts in their salaries, which then meant they had to readjust their budgets and had to readjust their living expenses. If you look around, there are many of our friends who've had to move houses. We've had people have to scale down their lifestyle because of the reality of how the COVID environment hit them in their businesses or also where they were employed. So while you're chasing your customers online, your customer is also going through their own journey of change, and they might not be ready to speak to you in that space. Or probably for some of us, your customer is not even in that online space that you're looking for. Then another area is what happened to your suppliers? What happened to your cost of inputs? Remember, we are doing an exploration to have a clearer understanding of the position our business is. There's some businesses where your market may not have changed too much because you're local. Your customers are still available to you. But the challenge you had is that your suppliers network was outside Nairobi. With the cessation of movement, getting your products or inputs for your service became more expensive, which then meant you had to increase the cost and price for your products and services. Then the domino effect after that is more expensive products being put in front of customers who are facing their own financial challenges, means that the demand for your product also went down. And then lastly, look at your cash flow. What happened to your income? Yes, your income dropped, but what caused it? Okay. Look at your expenses. Look at the truth behind how you're spending your money. I know a few of us had to then relocate from working in offices. There are people who had to give up their business premises and return their businesses to a space where we are working from home. So the first step in exploration is, the truth is COVID happened, but what did COVID do for you in your business specifically? The next step when you're talking about exploration is creating scenarios. What picture are you working towards for 2021? Okay. And not just 2021, 2021 and beyond. So looking at the same 4 areas, what's the big picture? How does 2021 and 2022 look like for your business, for your market, in your industry? What how will this affect your customers, and how will that have in turn tap into and affect your demand for your products or services? Then look at your suppliers. What's happening to them in 2021, 2022, and what happens to the cost of production for you in terms of your inputs. And then now we will look at cash flow and expenses after that. Okay. So for example, just a quick case study. I know for some of us, when we talk about 2020, what we're doing is we are currently just hoping that this month of April will end. Hopefully May will start, and the president will come and make a declaration. We're actually praying and hoping that the country will be opened up. And that's true also for me in training, okay? But when I sit down and I look at my scenarios over the next 2 years, these are some of the thoughts that come to mind. And this is a grid I'd like also to challenge you to draw it, and outside this call, and if possible, call yourself for a meeting. And what you're looking at is 2021 for me, and for some of us, it comes with these challenges. The first one is extended lockdown, COVID lockdown, and the slowdown that's happening in the sector. Here we're talking about that, for example, for those of us in training, and we need gatherings, we need venues to open, we need hotels, we need to be allowed to meet more than 15 people. For some of us, 15 is just your family, okay? So what I'm foreseeing, and the scenario is, what am I predicting almost for the future? So an extended lockdown will continue until the third quarter. Something else I'm foreseeing is, with politics and BBI picking up, this will come with a lot of uncertainty, which will affect the market that I'm in, and it will also affect the trajectory that we had initially at the beginning of the year. You remember January to March, things looked hopeful, and many of us started making decisions that were repositioning or trying to get back to what we were calling normal. So how does the politics and the BBI conversation affect that? Something else I'm doing is foreseeing that at best, by the end of the year, the most I can be able to recover in business is 50% of the customer numbers, or even the turnover numbers I had in pre-COVID, which is in 2019. So this is the picture that will inform and affect my strategy over the next few months. So what's your 2021 scenario? Looking at 2022, what I'm seeing is the COVID effects in Kenya will continue to affect the industry. And in some of these spaces, it's projected to 2023 and 2024, okay? And even then, the best possible picture that is being given is 70% recovery of pre-COVID numbers. So looking ahead, I remember last year around April, I had a conversation on one of our radio stations, and the host asked me, as a strategy conversation, how far do I see the effects of COVID hitting, especially the small and medium-sized businesses that many of us are in, okay? And when I told him that the projections from different conversations was that COVID will run into the elections, which then will run into an extended period. So the best recovery trajectory we have is about 3 or 4 years of economic slowdown. And he was shocked. So he called me again this year and he said, okay, it looks like 2023, 2024 is a possibility. The next thing in 2022 is that the election cycle and the politics that come with it, we will see the country open up, okay? But still, COVID effects being around, the markets will still be down at 50, 60%. So if this is what the big picture looks like for me in terms of country, industry, and market, what's your scenario? And building on that, then now you can ask yourself, how does this affect my customers? How will it affect the demand of my products or services? How will it affect the suppliers that I'm working with? And also, how does it affect my cash flow and income? Having done your exploration, then the next thing to do is, in repositioning yourself, is look at what opportunities you have going forward, okay? So this is a matrix that's available, and you can get it online. It's called the Ansoff matrix. And what it does, it looks at your products and your markets, and tries to give you a conversation around the first space is, if you're thinking of your product, your current product, okay, are you able to sell it to the same market and sell it to more customers? For some of us, we have not been able to think or grow into new products. How do you build a conversation that focuses on increasing your sales of your existing product to an existing market. And this strategy then for you would be market penetration. So your strategy for repositioning your business is looking at your sales to the current market, okay? Still thinking about the same product that you're talking about. With COVID and what the shakedown has had in the different sectors, some of us have been forced to look into new markets. The area that you're in has totally been affected. I'm thinking of people and some friends who ran private schools, and private schools then had suppliers of private school transport. For some of them, what happened is with the lockdown and schools being off for up to 9 months, they had to give up their premises. Those who own their premises had to look at new ways of using their premises. So how do you build the same product to a new market? Which then means that you're looking at market development. So you have a market development strategy. And in this case, you're talking different from the person who's thinking about market penetration. The third space is you've got a new product, but you're trying to introduce the new product to the same market. Think of somebody whose supply chain went totally dry. They can no longer meet the same clients with the same product. But you are able to do an analysis and understand where your customers are. You've understood what has happened to your customers and the needs and wishes of theirs that have changed. So since you already have an ongoing relationship and they have a trust relationship with you, you can introduce new products that speaks to the same market that you had, to the same customers that you had. And this is a strategy on product development. Then lastly, we talk about product diversification. And product diversification, we are looking at new products to new markets, which is a totally new space for you. And maybe this is what you need to look at. COVID has shut down your current market, has shut down access to your current customers. So what new things can you bring into that space? Having explored and then engaged on scenarios, the next scenario you need to look at is your numbers. What do your numbers tell you? What is the truth that the business is trying to tell you? Here I did a sample case for somebody in the training space like myself for the next coming 3 quarters from April to December of this year. And this is where I find when I'm coaching and mentoring business owners, where we tend to spend our time on is on looking at revenues, okay? So here, if you look at this our friend, let's call him John, who's running a training and consultancy business. He has 3 revenue streams where he earns his money, which is from training, from consultancy, and then he's got 1 retainer with an ongoing relationship with a client. So John, over the year, with 2020 and looking at where his business is, what he's been able to do is have an opportunity to project. And if you think through his training revenues, April has been a good month. So he's at 65,000. But then with the reality of what's happening to his customers, he can see a drop over the next 3 to 4 months. So his revenues in May, June, July will drop from 65 to 40 and to an average 35,000 that he's looking until August. Then hopefully in September, as things open up, when you get into last quarter, he's seeing a growth to 40,000 that he can sustain to the end of the year. So looking at cash flows in terms of income, our friend here says it's a good year. But I'd like to take you next to his expenses. Currently where he's at, he's paying a rent of 20,000. But remember that the rent goes to somebody who's also in business, who's also struggling. And what the landlord is saying is that from the month of July, he will increase his rent to 25,000. Because of having a tighter income, John has decided he will cut down his salary and drop it over the next few months to 45,000. So looking at the income and then the total projected expenses, I'd like you to just put your eyes at the bottom on what's the balance at the end of the month. And for John, what he sees is with his current trajectory, the best he can do is by the end of the year, he'll make of 65,000. So having done your numbers, then now you can get into the phase of execution. How do you make decisions based on what the numbers are telling you? Did this, and he looked at his months of June to August and identified that as a red mark, which he needs to look at, which means that his revenues are going to drop. He's seeing some hope in the future, But what does this picture look like for him is that the reality is that rent expenses over the next few months will become more difficult for him to handle. And because he'll be moving around a bit more, trying to chase new customers and new markets, he's also seeing an increase in terms of his transport costs. So this is the information that John has based on his numbers. So before you're able to reposition your business, the question for you is, what are your numbers telling you? Then you paused and looked at your scenarios. You've paused and looked at your numbers. And here, if I can go back, you can tell, for some of us, if you had to advise John, the one thing that would be clear is tell him, maybe it's time for him to move office. If he's able to move over the next 2 months, he'll be able to save himself almost 100,000 in expenses, okay? Is that the one thing that he can do? How do you execute your decisions based on the scenarios? Remember, we talked about 4 areas that you're looking at. So when you look at the market, when you look at your industry, when you look at where the country is, what do you see? And here, what I'm asking is, what are the trends that you're seeing that are affecting your business currently? And trends in the market and in the country, there's a model we talk about, Pestel, okay? What are the trends? What are they telling you about your business? What is your numbers trend telling you about your business? Secondly, when you look at your customers and the change that they're going through, maybe the drop in demand, what new opportunities can you pursue? Or how can you have a conversation with your existing customers and tap into opportunities that already exist with a new product? When you look at your suppliers, okay, where you get your inputs, are there new opportunities for you to tap into new connections? If you're going to be looking at a new product to new customers, are there new suppliers that you can talk to? What bright aha moments are you able to look at? For some of us, maybe just talking to your supplier, they can even tell you what trends are happening in terms of raw materials for them. They might be able to inform you new things that might be coming into the market that you can tap into that opportunity for your new customers. And then, having looked at your numbers, what are the things you need to delete? What are the things you need to stop? The second question is, what are income and expenses? What do you need to reduce doing? Do you need to stop traveling more? Do you need to stop expenses that don't fit into your current plan? And what are the things that you need to increase? So with those 3 scenario planning models, like I said, first is you pause, yeah? Explore your realities. And then based on the exploration, engage your truth, yeah? Find out what scenarios are working for you in the market, for your customers, for your suppliers, and for your income and supplies. Engage a conversation, sit down and talk to your numbers, talk to your records, talk to your books. And then based on that, then you have an execution plan, which will help you reposition your business in 2020 and beyond. I'd like to pause there and ask maybe if there are any questions that we can discuss for the next few minutes as we then work towards wrapping up this conversation.
Right. I am thinking, yes, right back to me. Thank you for sending it back to me. I was waiting for you to send it back to me because, Steve G, I feel like I'm in class. I feel like, I'm in class. I am writing so many notes. I'm asking myself, what's my scenario? What is my truth? That question of what is my truth is actually kwa ground. Kwa ground huku kwangu. Kwa ground kuko aje? I don't know what the English version of that is, but really what is with me here right now. So I've had a very reflective and thinking time, and I'm sure we have too. If you have questions, please put them on the chat, or please put up the raise hand button and we can take your questions. Steve, let me ask you a question before other people ask questions, because I'm sure they will. What kind of relationship would I have to have with my supplier for my supplier to tell me what's on the ground for them? Because we like to, as business people, we like to put up a face that tuko sawa, everything is all right, everything's all right. So I need his truth to inform my truth. So please speak into that.
So that's an interesting question. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is we as business owners need to have a rethink on, let me call it the mindset we have when it comes to running our businesses, okay? When we think of competition, we think of that person who's here, his existence is here to kill my business. we don't think of competition as people we can collaborate and grow with, okay? When we think of suppliers, we think of that guy who's out to make money from me. So nikiweza kumnyonga, if I can get and milk the relationship and make more money from him, then I'm in a better place. So to answer your question is, maybe it is time for us to even reposition our relationships with our partners, okay? So let's call them partners. And when you think of it as a partnership conversation, then your supplier is somebody you can sit down and have coffee with. And two things will happen then. You build a relationship where, like I know people who had an opportunity to extend their credit terms with their suppliers. Personally, my biggest partner in this space of training is my landlord. And when we hit 2020 March, things were looking okay. But by the time we got to April, I called him for a meeting and we sat down and we had a conversation around how does the next few months look like, okay? And what that led is that he gave me some grace period on payment, but he also cut down my rent for me. So when you have a partnership relationship with your suppliers, sit down with them. Don't just go to them when you're buying stuff. Call them for a cup of tea and celebrate the relationship you've had. Think of your supplier as the one person whose existence is critical to your survival, right. And then build a partnership relationship based on that.
I'm trying to get myself into the space of have a cup of coffee with the landlord. I think that's a new conversation for all of us, that maybe our mindset change around the landlords, because typically landlords are to be run away from. So that's a place to think. We have two questions on the chat. Okay. One is from Monica saying some clients are struggling with debts, multiple borrowing, especially in this COVID, and we are still in COVID. There's no after COVID, there's no post-COVID yet. So we are still in that space. What would you advise? What would you advise?
Okay, two things there, maybe two or three. I think the first question for us would be when your customers are struggling. So the first thing is don't dig yourself deeper, okay? And then just picking up on that conversation is, are you able to help them? And I've had people sit down with people that owe their money. And I've had people who also have sat down with me in terms of debt. I have clients who, when COVID came, they lost most of their income. And we agreed that the first space they need to look at is survival for family. And that's the truth, okay? But what we did then is we sat down and began a conversation around what's the plan? Are you able to work up a plan that over the next 6 months, over the next 1 year, I may not be able to pay you everything now, but I can make a commitment as my business improves, then I'll be able to pay you something small, okay? Then for you as a business owner is, like Carol, probably what you asked with the first question is, do you have the grace to be able to sit down with somebody they owe you money, not because they don't want to pay. They owe you money, like I said, because their scenarios are also difficult, okay? So what payment plan can you come up with? And then walk that journey with them. Seek a mindset of collaboration rather than fighting them. And the truth is, for some of us as business owners, 2020 up to now, there are many debts that might be written off as, we might need to write off as bad debts, okay? Put some conversation on the back burner. When they recover, if you had a good relationship, you can pick it up. But there's some spaces you might just need to let the client just take a break and rest.
Right. Yeah. Got that. I'm hearing a common thread in what you're talking about in terms of relationships, building relationships, collaboration, having conversations, whether they are hard conversations or not, but to have them anyway. We have a question on the chat. It's about the stopping to run for survival in order to reposition. What if one can't stop? How does running look like when you just can't stop? You can't stop. You know, we are Kenyans. We run, Steve G. Running is in our DNA. We are known world over for running. So you're telling us to stop running. Us, we just run. Please answer this good customer.
So if I go back to the story, you remember I talked about there are two scenarios. There's somebody who's running towards something, and then there are those who are running away from something, okay? So if you're not able to stop, probably the question you need to be having with yourself is, am I running away? And what are these things that are chasing me? Can I put them into perspective? Can I call them by what they are, okay? For some of us, like if you pick up the landlord conversation, most of us have had an opportunity where we are running from the landlord. So call the things that you're running from by name, and then find out why are you running away from them? What's this fear about them that you're running from, okay? So if you're running towards something, and I think this is where the challenge for business owners is, are you running towards a strategy and a plan that, if I can say, fits into with the conversation we had today? Are you running towards a picture of tomorrow that you have seen, or are you reactive to the reality? You know, like I said, many of us in businesses are just waiting for the government to open so we can chase the normal that we know. That normal has moved. Your client is no longer there for you. The truth, maybe your business model has collapsed. You might need a new model. Maybe your business needs to shut down. And I know one or two people who shut down their businesses because they realized that that's a truth they needed to consider. So first, identify what if you're running away or running towards, then define what you're running away or from. And if I can throw it here, Carol, is also find somebody you can talk to. Yeah, there are coaches, there are conversation therapists, there are mentors around who are available to have a conversation with you that will help you slow down and, if possible, stop. Yeah. And then lastly, maybe there's a wall in front of you that will stop you from running. And the challenge here is, let's help you stop before you hit that wall. And I like what you said earlier, Carol. There's a mental truth that as business owners we're going through. So we're thinking of the business, but we're not looking at the realities of our mental health and how that is doing.
Right. I get that like 200%. We need to name it. I need to name it. I need to name what I'm running from or running to. And I need to talk about it as well, because in talking about it, then I put it on the table and then I have to deal with it. And I just stop this running in a direction in which I'm not sure what I'm running and run away from. Do we have any other questions on the chat or with your hands up for Steve G as we have a few more minutes to go?
And as you do that, let me just share a final slide.
Okay. All right, before you share that final slide, let's take this one question on the chat. We've talked a lot about running, but what does running look like? What is this running you're talking about?
Okay, let me call it this way. As business owners, when you wake up in the morning, yeah, what informs what you're doing for that day? Do you have a plan? Okay. Do you have something written down that tells you that today I'm having a conversation around my customers and I need to talk to these 3 customers? Am I doing a conversation around my bookkeeping? Like currently, my accountant and I are sitting down and having a conversation around, like I said in the morning, when we began, sorry, I'm having to sit down with my lawyer and my accountant to discuss about what Endeavor Connections, what has happened to it, okay? So we're having a strategy conversation. Yeah, do we close it down? Do we put it on the back burner? What do we need to do? When I think of 2020, like I said, between the months of March and July, I had 0 business. I had no client, no money coming in. During that time, I was running from fears of the truths around, do I have enough money to survive, okay? And then I put a network around me, talking to my landlord, talking to a few other people that helped me stretch the capacities that we had, okay? But also for most of us, do you even have a strategy for 2020 and 2022 that has been informed by your customers, your cash flows, and your plan? Or is your strategy still a reaction to COVID? Like Carol, you've said, we're in COVID for a while. So are you responding to a plan, or are you reacting to what everything else is happening? That's what I call running. So if you don't have a plan, you're just waking up and hoping to survive the day.
True that. Very true. Give us your last thoughts, Steve G.
So the final conversation for you as we wrap up is, when you talk about business repositioning, and remember, I split the word repositioning into 2. First is identify your current position. Do an exploration to find out what your truths for 2020 look like. Look at your scenario planning for 2021 and 2022. Then engage a plan by talking to your records. You remember the Insoft metrics we talked about, new clients and about your product and market. But then the one thing I've learned over the last year especially is the only way to reposition and to do something is to act now. And I found this quote somewhere and I liked it. And it says that your future is created by what you do today, okay? Not what you will do tomorrow. So when you finish this call and when you go back to your afternoon, what are you going to do about this conversation that we've had? What are you going to do today to look at your scenarios for 2020 to 2022? What are you going to look about talking to your numbers? What are you going to do today about thinking about your trends and your market, okay? Thinking about your customers and the opportunities, thinking about your suppliers and your inputs, finding new spaces, and then lastly, and most importantly, thinking about your numbers. What do you need to stop spending on? What do you need to do less of? And what do you need to do more of to be able to make money? With these three areas, I hope that you will have the right tools to take the next steps into 2021. And maybe when you have this call a year from now, we can look back and say, those scenarios actually worked, and this is what I was able to do. So I stopped running, and I actually started having an enjoyable walk every day. Thank you, Carol, and thank you for this opportunity.
Right. What absolute wisdom. Steve G, people are begging on inbox. I don't know why they're not begging on outbox. As Kenyans, we like to slide into the DM and ask for things. People are asking for this presentation. Steve G, will you allow us to share it with the people on this call? Would you be gracious enough?
Yes, we will do that. I'll share the slides, the PDF version with the team at Springboard, and everybody is welcome. If you'd like to have a conversation, like you saw, what I call them conversations over a cup of hot cocoa, a hot chocolate. Welcome. We can always have a sit down, socially distanced conversation, and I can help you see where you need to stop and probably what you need to start doing.
Absolutely. Please share your contacts, Steve G. How do we find you? How do all these great people in this room find you? We need to talk to you. That's a given. I think you're a gift to this. I was going to say congregation. Are we a congregation? Yeah, I think you're a gift to this congregation. Please put your number in the chat or your email in the chat, and we can get in touch with you. Meanwhile, we have some comments on the chat. Great job, Steve G. Tips for today will help many reflect intentionally and take relevant actions to address both the business and personal situations. Asante sana. Lots of wisdom. Thank you very much, Steve D. I will definitely have a meeting with myself. Great conversation and tips and insights. I don't even think I need to do a vote of thanks. A vote of thanks is pouring through the chat, Steve G. This has been quite something, quite a reflective conversation. We need to call ourselves to a retreat and just sit in the grass somewhere. You don't need to go to Naivasha for a retreat. It would be nice, but Naivasha can be on the grass somewhere in a green space and just, talk to self. Ask self those hard questions that you have asked us. And my take home for today is that you want us to be bold as entrepreneurs and have conversations that we must have and take a hold of the truth and make things happen. And your last question, what are you going to do today? What am I going to do today? What are we going to do today? I think we must just answer that question. So dear ones, we've served you lunch, hot lunch. When I was in primary, there was something called hot lunch. We have served you hot, piping hot, steaming lunch. It is here with you. Please digest it, go and think through it. It has filled your mind, filled your bellies. If you want this presentation, please click on the link in the chat, and it's now WhatsApp forum or broadcast. We'll broadcast and send you the presentation through that. We're not going to email it. We are not going to put it on the chat. Please just join the WhatsApp broadcast and we will send it from there. And finally, I bring you a lot of love from Springboard Capital. We are the lending hand. That's what we say. We lend wisdom, we lend great conversations, we lend relationships, and we lend you money. Because to fuel your dreams in the way that CG has told us today, you need money. We are here to give you money. We will lend you money, we will partner with you, we will capitalize your business, we will help you get to the next level. And we'll walk one day at a time. Even in the event that you are struggling with your loan, we are here to talk to you in the way we are talking to you today. We are a very kind lender, we are a very discerning lender, we are a very considerate lender. So please send around the word. If anybody needs any kind of business advice, any money, or whatever level, come to us. come to us. We are here to serve you and to love you. The world needs a lot of love, and we are here to dish out that. So 1 hour is up. It's exactly 2 o'clock. We promised you 1 to 2. We keep time. We are efficient like that. And so we want to wish you well. Have a good weekend ahead. It's end of the month. Enjoy the end of April. May May bring you great power as you change and reposition your business. May it be an absolutely fantastic month for you, full of abundance and full of blessings. And so we wish to say bye this afternoon, and we shall meet you at the end of May when we have our next webinar. So bye, everybody. Thanks for coming, and thanks for being part of this webinar today. Have a good weekend, everyone.